A statistical overview of Discord Wars 7 participation. Pancakes versus waffles. Here's the outline of what we're going to look at today. I'm going to talk about how I got the data that makes up the statistics, or the basis of the statistics in this presentation. We're going to look at event-wide statistics, which are basically stats across games. And then we're going to look at the games individually, or individual events. It's kind of, the terminology here is kind of annoying because events, like the Discord Wars itself is an event and it's composed of events. But when I say event-wide statistics, I'm looking at like points the whole team got across the 2-week span. And then after that, we're going to break down each event individually, like how many people participated in Sunshine and who did what goals in Sunshine, stuff like that. And then we'll wrap it up. So starting with the data, the way I got the data was I just scraped all of it from the Discord Wars website, same website we used for submissions and everything like that. All this data is public. I didn't have to try and find some private endpoint or something to get it sneaky. It comes from the front page. I just copied, for example, all of the stuff that were in the graphs that added up. And then I also went to individual profile pages that had each participant's what goals they did, what events they submitted, stuff like that. And all the data I collected could be collected by anybody who just went to the site. It wasn't like I did anything suspicious. You wouldn't have to have any programming knowledge to collect this data, except if you didn't, you'd just be writing down a lot and clicking a lot more. You'd be writing a lot of stuff in a notepad. But I used a program to help me gather it more efficiently. Now, as far as the integrity of the data, none of the data that we're going to be looking at today includes points that come from non-individual sources. So stuff like Battlefront, since those points weren't awarded to a specific person, they were awarded to a whole team. Likewise, the race time GG top 15 bonus points, which is not something I realized at the start of Discord Wars was a thing, but apparently whichever team had the most top 15 finishers, that team got a bonus allotment of points in addition to talking about Valorant, fine. In addition to just the points each individual member got for their slot. One participant's profile had 60 points assigned to it, but didn't have any of the goals allocated. As I don't know what's going up there, but likewise, since I based the data just on the profile pages, those are 60 points that just aren't accounted for anything anywhere. So it's as if that was a non-participant as far as the statistics are concerned for this presentation. We're going to look at so I did scrape points from individual profiles. You had your own Discord Wars profile that said what you did. All of that was accessible. You didn't have to log in to see other people. You could just look people up. But we're not gonna look at individual people. I'm not gonna say ooh, SG4E. It was one of the people who did Sunshine 10 shines or whatever. We're not gonna call people out individually. We're just gonna look at the statistics of Discord Wars participants as a population, not calling out individuals. We don't want people to feel bad that we don't want to single people out. That's not the purpose of the presentation today. Time to recount the total score of this. I'll DM you, Kelly. I'll DM you who it was. I did, okay, so here's the disclaimer that I did my best to process all the data accurately. It's possible I made errors. I'm not doing it maliciously. I'm not trying to push an agenda today. It's possible that there might be a few mistakes, but I did my best. I did my best to make sure everything was accurate. And I'm not fudging any statistics on purpose. That's my word to you. We do enjoy some fake news on the channel. I do enjoy spreading some misinformation, but I promise you I'm not doing it today, at least not on purpose. This presentation is just from me as a big fan of Discord Wars. This report by Big Pancake, right? Nobody asked me to do this. I didn't ask permission to do it either. I don't speak on behalf of other people. Any kind of conclusions or sort of like interpretations of the statistics I make today, just completely on my own. That's Big Pancake sounds delicious. So that's where the data comes from. Let's move on and actually start looking at some of the stats that we got from it. We'll start with the most basic stats for completeness stake. And this isn't really to rub anything into Waffle's face, but yeah, the final point total was around 24,000 points to 23,000 points, close to 1,000 difference. Pretty big points this year. We definitely saw some of that point inflation in Discord Wars. Both teams had an equal amount of participants, with 330 on both teams for a total of 660. And the next statistic we're going to look at is how many people signed up for Discord Wars, but before the end of the event didn't end up submitting any points. And this might be the most depressing statistic of the presentation today. This was kind of shocking to me. But 122 pancakes and 115 waffles, they are rather equally distributed, so it's not like it made a difference. For a total of 237, over a third of people who signed up for Discord Wars never ended up submitting any points. Now, the way that I gather these statistics is it's possible, I think rather unlikely, it's possible that someone didn't do anything but a leaderboard, had points on the leaderboard at some point, but then got bopped off the leaderboard and ended up not taking any points. But it's possible that someone is included in this total. But I think everybody in this group probably didn't do anything at any point. So I'm really curious about the statistic. This is a situation where I wish. Yeah, I highly doubt that person exists too. But I'll tell you that it's a theoretical possibility given how I collected these stats. I kind of figured pancakes would have more 0 points than I assume. Get that from my phone. This is one of the situations, like maybe if that's what Achilles talked about, that'd be great. I'd be really interested to see what this was for previous Discord Wars. Like, is this relatively high? Like, do we attribute this to the sign up period being kind of short, like less than a week, and people maybe signed up to not miss out because they're like, oh, I better sign up because I don't have too much time, whether they wanted to do anything or not? Did they look at the games list and think like nothing really appeals to me? Did it just happen too late? Because this Discord was rather late. Maybe people are like, man, I always participate in Discord Wars, so I'm signing up. And then, these 2 weeks were just like late August or late July, early August, and like just didn't work out. I mean, there's really nothing we can do but speculate, because I don't know what kind of statistics we can outside of polling these people and say, why did you not participate? I don't know what I don't know what we can actually gather stat wise from this other than speculation. But yeah, at the same time, Valiant, like you gotta come up with some kind of scaling with previous Discord Wars, because like the points increase as well. So there were some that were really close. There's that one year, was it Dogs and Cats? Dogs and Cats was really close at the end, was it not? Does always say join, even if you don't. You remember? FOMO possibly. So as long as we make it past, that's the saddest stat. I promise no other stat will be as sad as that one. So let's put that in the back of our mind and move forward. Now I don't like, participation comes in all sorts of flavors. I don't want to call these people non-participants. I don't want to assign negative language to these people because like maybe like you really like pancakes, maybe you really like waffles, maybe just IRL stuff came up. Um, and you know you can join a team and be in the Discord and like cheer on or go on people's streams and cheer them on. Like there's ways to participate that don't have to be getting points. But for the sake of our statistics, I think it's more interesting to filter out accounts that got 0 points. So when we're looking at team totals later, like percentage of team members who did an event, all future statistics in this presentation is going to exclude people who did absolutely nothing points wise. So like percentage of people who did an event will be percentage of people who submitted anything. So keep that in mind for the rest of the statistics that we'll see. First, let's look at points per participant across both teams. The median, so the average person, the average person on Team Pancakes got 115.4 points. It's pretty high, but keeping in mind that points inflated quite a bit this year. Median on Pancakes was 88 points. Standard deviation was 97.8. On Waffles, slightly lower numbers, but comparable. The mean was 107.6. Yeah, you can, right? The median was 80, and the standard deviation was 95.3. The one thing that sort of strikes out at me, and yeah, you do like I wonder who's over here, right? Do I have the okay? You guys can see my mouse. I wonder who this is. I wonder who these two are. We're not going to call anybody out. I mean, we could you can probably figure. It's not hard to figure out who those members might be. I the one thing that strikes me about this graph on both teams, and maybe a better look would have been to have these overlaid on top of each other. But Creek Small gave a very inspirational speech on Sunday to Team Pancakes at 1 p.m. It was the final Pancakes meeting. And he said, Discord Wars isn't won by the JTBs, the Creek Smalls, the I Ate Your Pies, the Alan M's. Discord Wars is won by the people who show up. They do at one event, they do two events, you know, they get just in their free time, they get the points they can get. And to me, it looks like, and you kind of see this also on this I believe this is called the KDE, this approximation line. You can kind of see that here where on Team Pancakes, these are histograms, by the way. The left side of the histogram, those lower bins, those bins between 0 and like 100, 120 is a little bit fatter. Like that section is a little bit fatter, where we see more participants in that section. More participants on Team Pancakes who came out and got like those 50 points. You know, those 50 to 100 points than we saw on Waffles. Now both teams do have like another sort of like local maximum here, maybe. Like you definitely see that on Waffles, where between the 200 and 300 point range, there's this nice little curve. A lot of gamers show up for the pyramid scheme. Yeah, we're going to be looking at Fortnite later, and it's quite interesting. So that's kind of what I see here. Is you see like, you know, quite a lot of gamers coasting around like 100 to 1 or 0 to like 120 points. And you see another little spike between like the 200 and 300. But the bins between 100 and like 120 or 0 to 120 on Pancakes seemed a little more filled up, at least distributed more widely than Waffles, which had quite a few participants in the lowest bin. Maybe it's like 10, 20. Those 300 points is where you reach the point of needing to be on leaderboards. Yeah, it could be that. It could. That's a really good conclusion, Tar. I didn't think about that. So that was points per participant. Hey, Soul Man. Now let's take a look at events per participant. So what was like? How many events? Forget about points. How many events did people enter? And the average person the average participant, I should say, because remember, all of these statistics filter out people who didn't do anything. So otherwise, the averages would be lower. So keeping that in mind, I've filtered all of those out for these stats and all the stats forthcoming. The average active participant who did something on Team Pancakes completed 6.2 events. The median was 5. And on Team Waffles, the mean events completed per participant was 5.6 and the median was 4, so slightly lower. Now, what jumps out at me about this is I was really surprised by the amount of people who did exactly one event. Like both teams. Both teams had quite a lot of people who did exactly one event. And I didn't expect that. I expected like there'd be a lot of people who did a few events, but I wasn't expecting 38 participants on Tapioca's one step ahead. 38 participants on Pancakes and 47 participants on Waffles. But otherwise, like these event graphs sort of parallel the points graphs. Like I'll do a little bit of this right here. You can see very similar shapes, right? And that's to be expected, because although events are worth different amount of points, you would expect that people who participate in more events got more points. Like it makes a lot of sense. So the shapes are very similar between these two, the points graph and the events graph. So that got me really interested in looking more into those people who did exactly one thing, submitted for points, and didn't do a single other event. And I called them here one-off participants. I looked into it, and I wanted to know what were the most popular events among those people who did exactly one thing. And Tapioca's already one step ahead. I'd like you to, I came up with the top 3. I'm curious to hear chat's thoughts on what they think 2 and 3 are. The top one was creative, and this is a little bit biased because when I collected this stat, I believe it was just, I believe this isn't biased for this. I think this is just, I'm not sure now. I'll have to go back. I definitely lumped for the one-off participants here the creative and the Cookbook Club as one event. So these 29 participants either drew their fan art, cooked a pancake or waffle, or did both. So admittedly, this is a little biased, and that's unintentional. I should have done it differently. Maybe we should have separated two, but I ended up lumping them together just for this statistic. So this one is when you lump them together, it makes sense. Sam, pigs or Fortnite? We're not going to look at any leaderboard statistics for this because like leaderboards or race time. We're not going to look at any race time or leaderboard stats for this because they're not. Leaderboard stats only take account of who ended up on the leaderboard, so it's only 15 people each time. I don't have the time series data of who was on the leaderboard. That would be really interesting. I'd love to collect that in the future. And I didn't import any of the race time stuff either because all that's interesting for that, points-wise, is people who got top 15, so it didn't seem that interesting to look at. But yeah, race time would be interesting. Who did race time and nothing else? That would be something cool to look at. But yeah, number 2, Fortnite is a decent guess. Number 2 was Archipelago. Archipelago actually saw 13 participants do Archipelago and nothing else. Kind of makes sense when you think about it. At least in Team Pancakes, I heard I would read a few messages of those people being like, I got my friend to join Discord Wars. They'd love to play Archipelago with us. So it seemed like some of this recruiting going on for Archipelago possibly. People who came to do Archipelago and nothing else. There were 13 of them. And event number 3 was very surprising to me. That's my hint. Do you have any guesses that I don't know, that's like your dark horse? Hades is a good guess. Played Up, Vermintide, PUBG. PUBG had a lot of participants, but not a lot of people who did PUBG did other stuff too. Raikaru got it. 12 people showed up to RuneScape and did nothing else. That, hmm, that surprised me. That surprised me personally. Yeah, like I don't know, it's surprising and not surprising at the same time. Like it's one of those where it surprised me, and then when you think about it, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like it was something you could definitely invest a lot of time into if you wanted to. There's plenty of content to do there, so maybe you started in it and just never left. Like that was just what you did for the 2 weeks. So that was 12 people. Now next we're gonna look at the game statistics or each individual event, one at a time. Although at first I think we're gonna do sort of a cross. I think first we have. Okay. Here's what we've got first. The per event totals all in one graph. This is taken directly from the exported right from the Discord Wars website. It doesn't get more official than this. And then I just, since it's a little bit hard to see, just because I'm using a wide layout here, a 16 by 9, I recreated it as a as the flip the bars. Yeah, Waffles barely edged out on Vermintide. A lot of people played Rats indeed. So I looked at this and I started thinking about, is there a way we could scale these numbers? Because, okay, like this is all interesting, but one of the things that these numbers hide is all these events are worth different amounts of points, right? So I'm wondering, is there like a metric we could come up with to sort of scale these events or like normalize them? Where I'm just gonna skip. I'm gonna skip this. I like this song, but I'm just not in the mood for this song right now. So we'll move on. I can't concentrate with the opera music. I'm sorry. All right. So I started thinking about, is there a way we can sort of normalize events to account for they're all valued for different amounts of points? And actually, before we do that, for the most part, I only collected statistics or data at one point, and it was after the event ended. But I happened to take a snapshot of all of these event totals at 8 a.m. on the final Sunday. And I was curious how much those totals changed. Since I had this data, I decided to include it because I found it interesting. So I had a snapshot of what the points looked like for all these events, the spread, on 6 a.m. on Sunday, and then I compared it to the final total. And this is what we got. This was particular. I mean, I'm a little bit biased presenting this data since this was the big pancake push. The data itself is not biased. Maybe me including it is a little biased as a pancake. But yeah, what did both teams do on their final like 11, 12 hours? Well, there were a few Archipelago finishes. Waffles rounded up more. There's just one Archipelago to finish up on Team Pancakes. Pancakes played some Castle Crashers at the end, some Crab champions of both teams. One member on both teams finished up Dark Souls in the final 11 hours. Quite a bit of people decided to leave their making a waffle or pancake for the Sunday. Makes sense. And right here, do we have my mouse showing? Okay, my mouse is showing. Right here, we have the Creek Small effect. For people who weren't able to join the Team Pancakes meeting, Creek Small gave a very inspirational speech at 1 p.m. on the final day, where he did the joy of painting and encouraged everybody who hadn't submitted art yet to go in a voice call, draw some art, and submit it. And you very much see that here. This is the Bob Ross submission. To be fair, a lot of waffles, like still, what is it? Like that event was 10 points each. So 20 waffles also took the opportunity Sunday to do that. And I believe prior days as well. There was a decent, like waffles was winning. This was the Pancakes narrative for people who weren't on Team Pancakes. The Pancakes narrative was that Waffles had gained a lot in creative points, and as a pancake, the pancake leaders were saying we can't let them win on us in a category that you just have to draw something in just a matter of minutes and submit it. There's a big pancake push to do a lot of creative points on the last day. Pushing creative constantly. Event points, there was no event in the last 10, like the last 11 hours, so there's nothing allocated there. A couple people finishing up Ironmon. Pancakes did go hard. I believe that was also a focal point of the meeting. Was we very much pushed Fortnite for the final drive. This was surprising me. I didn't realize there was so much Hades going on our team. At least Hades that was left towards the end. But I believe Waffles took most Hades points overall and were winning. Was a wide margin for a lot of the event. But Pancakes ended up submitting a lot of their 92 points on the last towards the end there. Waffles Fortnite push was the night before this. Yeah, I get that feeling. It's a bit of a shame. See, I don't know how feasible it would be for me to do, but I think a time series of stats would be really interesting. Like this just gave me the itch to collect more data as the event is going on, because I think it would be really cool to see the change over time throughout the whole event. Because just looking at the final 11 hours, which granted are very interesting because both teams are very active during this time period. But I find that the time series would be really interesting. Historical, this time you don't. I remember like it used to be like I believe dogs and cats or maybe here's it did have like the line graph at the top, which was always an interesting thing to look at. A Holocure, Pancakes took some of these leaderboard points back from Waffles. A little bit of action, Lethal Company, but the leaderboard swung a little bit towards Waffles on the final 11 hours. I don't know why these values don't add up. I think that's just because of how the leaderboard works for because it's like 11 slot. I don't quite understand the leaderboard for Lethal Company because I was never going to do it, but I think that's why. Majora's Mask, a couple more finishers on Pancakes. Waffles reclaimed quite a few pig slots. PlateUp had some action on both sides. Rabbit and Steel finishers going in. I don't know what the change in race time was here. Like this must have just been like points needed, like just needed like a refresh or something. I'm not sure about this, but there were some waffle points that got added from racing. You know what this? Someone could have gotten a finish and forgot to submit put their race time in the profile. Like, it could have been that. But yeah, so there's that there. Waffles were ahead in RuneScape the whole time, and you could see there were more Waffles finishing up their RuneScape on the final day as well. Everything else is kind of like pretty even on both teams, though, for these final ones. Somebody had a broken name. Okay, that was it. So let's go back to that idea of how do we account for, is there a way we can somehow normalize the fact that different events are worth different amount of points? Like, for example, 1,275 points were obtained in Vermintide across teams, and 1,080 points were obtained across teams for SM64 randomizer. So, can we conclude that Vermintide 2 is more popular? Well, completing Vermintide 2 gave you 20 points, and completing, nope, Soloman says. So this got brought up in Soloman's chat. This is why I was inspired to include try to think of a metric for this. Yeah, so they're valued for different points. Vermintide 2 is worth double as much as SM64, so you can't really make that conclusion. But how, is there a way we could maybe account for the different point values across games? And I came up with this metric called a fully interested participant. Now, let's define a fully interested participant as someone who gets all available points for one game. So, for example, if you get less than the full points, then you're a fraction of a FIP. So, SG4E, for example, if he finishes Acts 1 and 2 of Vermintide 2, but he doesn't do Acts 3 and 4, I get 10 of the 20 possible points, so I'm 1/2 FIP for Vermintide 2. So As far as using that as a metric, it has some advantages and disadvantages. The advantages are we normalize that difference across events. We're able to quantify the degree of participation. Later on, we're going to look at how many people did anything, like as little or as much for particular events. We're going to look at that later, but let's for now try to look at sort of like the larger scope of participation as a whole. So, like measuring with fully interested participants helps you quantify that degree of participation. And for events that have only one goal, there's no difference between a fully interested participant, a FIP, and just a regular participant. So it coalesces into one unit at that point. So that's kind of good. Messing with Solomon is your passion. It does have some disadvantages if we use this metric. One of them is that the effort difference across events is not equal. So like one RuneScape FIP is the same as one Discord Wars Creative FIP, as far as this metric is concerned. But doing Discord Wars Creative took you all of like a couple minutes, and getting all the RuneScape points took like more than 24 hours probably. On top of that, the intention for some events isn't always to get all the points. Like second loop of Super Ghouls and Goblins is, I don't think, I think maybe the expectation was most people would just stop after the first loop. Damage lists for SMS was definitely like, okay, just try this out. You don't really expect people to get most of the damage list points. We're going to expect like using FIPS to measure SMS participation to be kind of bad. It's not going to capture what we want. And it also doesn't account for events where you couldn't acquire all the points if you wanted to. Like if you wanted to do all 5 randomizers, you couldn't do that. So the FIPS metric is going to be off for randomizers no matter what. Now, you could also look at FIP to team ratio, which is kind of nice, actually. This is kind of a better metric, which is you take the total number of FIPS and divide by the number of active participants. And what this gives you is sort of like a power quotient, or how much potential points were left on the table. How sunk your cost was, Rio. So if someone has a 100, if a team has a 100% FIP to team ratio for a certain event, that means everybody got all the points they could have possibly got for that event. So that's kind of an interesting statistic to talk about, like how strong an event was, like how powerful that event was for the team. How many people came out for that? So let's look at the bar graphs for that as far as fully interested participants. Straight up fipping right now. Any fippers in chat? I thought you guys might like that. So when I actually plotted the data for FIPS, I didn't actually find it that interesting. Spoiler alert. It did do the one thing that I wanted it to do, and it showed Vermintide had more FIPS than where is it? Okay. Where is SM64? Okay, SM64 randomizer, yeah, had more FIPS than Vermintides. There you have it. More popular Kappa. The FIPS per event wasn't really that interesting, but here you have it. I found the FIP to team ratio to be more interesting though. But this was actually kind of good, because what this tells you is, like, look at Archipelago for instance. On Team Pancakes, which is the blue, they had a 60% FIP to team ratio, which is the same thing in this case since there's only one goal, as 60% of active participants did Archipelago and completed it. That's a lot. That's quite a bit. I mean, not really that surprising since we know that Archipelago is kind of very popular. Switch on over to Fortnite. Fortnite had 18% FIP to team ratio on Pancakes and 20% for Waffles. I believe that ends up being, let's see, so 20% would mean that the average person took, like, how many points was it? Fortnite was 60 points max, right? So you multiply that by 20%. You get 12. So that's, each win was worth 4 points, right? Yeah. So on average, it's like everybody among active participants on Waffles won 3 matches. What a coincidence. So it's that magic number 3. Yeah, so that actually makes a lot of sense here, right? Pretty much, but it goes beyond that because that's the whole team. Remember, this is FIP to team ratio. So that's like some people did more and some people did less. But at the end of the day, exactly on average, each active participant did got 3 wins in Fortnite. So the bot push was very strong. Slightly stronger on Waffles because they had 20% versus 18% on Fortnite, but you definitely see where that number comes from, right? Um, but yeah, also looking at like Vermintide all the way on the right there, 15% on both teams is pretty nice. 15% like of the team getting max points. Again, it's FIPS, so it's like, someone might have only got up to Act 2, another person only got up to Act 2, but you put them together, you get up to Act 4, it counts as one fully interested participant. Pretty decent turnout in terms of people showing up for Vermintide. The loser here is Sunshine, but because of how the metric works, you kind of expect you kind of expect it to be low. I will spoiler you though. It doesn't get any more optimistic for Sunshine when we look at the individual stats. So let's move on. First, let's look at the statistics for events that only had exactly one goal. So either you did it or you didn't do it. There were no other points. You either took points or you didn't take points. There were no thresholding. So Archipelago, 60% of the team turning out on Pancakes. Very similar numbers, 56 on Waffles. Castro Crushers saw about a third of the team. Again, when I say of the team, I mean of active participants, of somebody who did any points. Cookbook Club, half turnout. Creative, 2/3 turnout. Surprising, like, I don't know, like, you know, PUBG is very easy. We always bill it that way. Like, you just show up and you get points, but it's a long download. You got to do the tutorial. I think a third of the team. I'm looking at all on Team Pancakes, and we'll take a closer look at Waffles. All of the team, or a whole quarter of the team, turning up for PUBG on like a Wednesday night or whatever it was. That's pretty good. That's pretty good turnout. Also about a third for Shredders. And then Waffles look pretty similar numbers. You can see a bigger PUBG push for Waffles. I wasn't on Team Waffles, but I got the impression that they really tried to push some turnout for. It was Friday night. Okay, yeah. Muck did a push. Yeah, it felt like there was a push on Waffles to have people turn out for PUBG. So that seemed effective. Seemed effective because we see quite a bit more participation for PUBG on Team Waffles compared to Pancakes, whereas all the other single goal events had pretty similar, not much different turnout. So pretty good. Crashers was weird. Okay, now let's look at events that had multiple goals, where there were multiple point values that each participant could take. So Crab Champions, we're going to go in more or less alphabetical order, but we'll be mixing it up a bit. Crab Champions saw 42 Pancakes that took any points on the team. These bar graphs are of people on the team who took points versus people who, for this event in particular, people who took Crab Champion points, who earned Crab Champion points versus other active participants who didn't participate in Crab Champion. 42 on Pancakes, 48 on Waffles. And Nightmare Mode was very popular. By far, people who took points on Crab Champions ended up also finishing Nightmare Mode. I do like this. I do think it's really cool that one person on Team Pancakes tried normal mode, and I was like, that's it, man. By far, yeah. One person on Pancakes tried normal mode, and like, that's it for me. I'm done with this game. I respect it. The point total overall did slightly favor Waffles. Over to Fortnite. Quite a bit of participation, over a quarter of the team on both teams among active participants. participated in Fortnite. 81 people took Fortnite points on Pancakes. 79 on Waffles. Very similar numbers. However, even though Pancakes had 2 more participants, Waffles ended up taking more Fortnite points than Pancakes overall. These graphs are interesting to me. Yeah, a lot of more than double the amount of people on Waffles managed to cap themselves out on Fortnite. The cap is doing its job. Hey, bye. Yeah, more than double the people managed to this is the opportunity where it's kind of cool to hear from the other team. I'll just openly tell you guys what we were talking about on Pancakes at this point, and I'm wondering I have started getting wind that there was the pyramid scheme pretty well coordinated on Waffles to make this happen. So shout outs to that. Also, another thing you see from these graphs is that number 3, right? Right here. A big spike at number 3 on both teams. Like, granted, people are busy with their lives, but it was easy enough. It was easy enough to say, hey, just come out one night, do your 3 bot matches, and then just uninstall the game if you want. But a lot of people responding to that message on both teams, even if they didn't find the time to work past that or get in the pyramid scheme. A significant jump on both teams for people who submitted exactly 3 Fortnite wins. Pretty even too, like 16 on Pancakes, 16 on Waffles. People who just showed up, did their bot matches and pieces. I don't know. This is kind of surprising to me. 7. I don't know why 11 people on Team Pancakes ended up with. It's such an odd number. Like, you'd kind of expect it to be a multiple of 3. Like, you joined for groups that had bot matches. Like, you kept leeching, right? I don't really know why 11 people on Team Pancakes ended up with 7 wins. So yeah, maybe what Valiant says, like, they leached twice and then managed 1 more win. Yeah, like with Gris, like multiples of 3 makes sense. But yeah, like they I guess like what Valiant says, like they tried their luck a 3rd time and then pieced out for an additional time. But yeah, shout outs to Team Pancakes or Team Waffles. They did very good on organizing the pyramid scheme there. Like where you see Pancakes kind of had numbers all around. Waffles managed to get quite a bit capped. So good job there. Now Hades was a Waffles-sided event, but it was closer. It ended up being closer than I expected it to be. I didn't do Hades. I don't really know how hard it is. I get the impression that getting really high heat is pretty hard, though. Yeah, slight swing points-wise to Waffles here. 2 more participants on Waffles took points compared to Pancakes. Quite surprising. A lot of people capped out on this, though. 26 participants on Pancakes took max points, managed heat 32 versus 31, achieving 32 heat on Waffles. And then you sort of see like there were people who ended up, at lower heats on both teams and all values of heats for points. But yeah, pretty sizable amount of people managed to that's like half. Yeah. Half of people who submitted for points in Hades managed to get max heat. So that's pretty cool. A lot of Hades experiences. So yeah, like I don't think that's easy to get. So well done. Well done to the Hades players. Lethal Company, but we're excluding the leaderboard. Just the Lethal Company event that was quota based, not leaderboard based. This was remarkably pancake sided in points overall. Nearly 2/3 of the points overall going to Pancakes. Yeah, Lethal Company badge. I don't own Lethal Company. I miss the when it was flavor of the month and now that it's not really flavor of the month, I'm not really interested anymore. But yeah, what is this? Nearly 10 more participants came for Pancakes, and Pancakes managed to get a lot of their 6 quota points whereas Waffles didn't take that many. Waffles, 14 Waffles managed 6 quotas, and then 7 each for 2 and 4 quotas. Nearly half again as many participants. Most of the Waffles side gamers aren't really horror gamer people. It could be, yeah. Played Up. Played Up saw close to a fourth, just judging from the bar graph, close to a fourth among active participants on both teams chose to participate in Played Up. And although Pancakes slightly had the advantage in terms of team overall points, but people who participated in Played Up overwhelmingly went all the way through Stir Fry. Nobody stopped at salad. Not a single, not a single team stopped at salad. There were some people who got to steak and chose to stop there, but overwhelmingly, people who participated in Played Up ended up going all the way through Stir Fry. Easy Kaizo Ironman. Now, this is an interesting one because there are so many different goals for it. I'm not a big Ironman, as you know, I'm not a big Ironman player, mostly because I'm not a big Pokemon gamer. We saw an advantage to Team Pancakes and team points overall. Slightly more participants chose to partake in Ironman on Pancakes, 42 versus 36 on Waffles. I like what is up with Surge? Can someone who understands Ironman explain like what happens after Surge here? Because on Team Pancakes, those are badges at the bottom. So we have 1 through 8 badges, and then we have each of the Elite Four members finishing with the champ. There's a hard dungeon. Okay, fair enough. That's Rock Tunnel, right? Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So a lot of people making it to Rock Tunnel, and then that was where the run ended. Yeah, I know about Rock Tunnel. I didn't piece it together in my brain that that's what comes after Surge. It is funny to me how big a wall that was on Pancakes versus Waffles. Waffles also managed to get 4 people past champ. So more successful at finishing the Ironman over at Waffles. Yeah, not great points for the investment either. Yeah. I'm just kind of just staring at the graphs right now, and then they're just kind of interesting to take in. Like the big wall on Pancakes at Rock Tunnel, and then sort of a pretty like random distribution as far as how far people got. Like people choosing to get past Brock and stop on Waffles more so than Pancakes, but then overall Waffles managing to get more people past champ. More like Elite Four deaths. A greater variety of Elite Four deaths on Pancakes, it seems. Did specifically Brock. Cruised until Victory Road, realized it was totally dead on damage. Yeah, Elite Four seemed very tough. Next we have Rabbit and Steel. 40 Pancakes took part in Rabbit and Steel, and I have chat over the right side here. Is that 30? 32. 32 on Waffles. This ended up being a pancake-sided event by about 6-4. I mean, the bar graphs here are interesting. Quite a bit on both teams choosing to try normal mode and peace out before hard mode. But of the people who did manage a hard mode first clear, quite a large percentage of them ended up going all the way and doing all stages. So we saw very few people quit at hard mode first clear. If you chose to go past normal, most people ended up going all the way and doing all stages. I know Pancakes had some really good carriers. Missed the Rabbit is still carrying the final day. So perhaps Waffles also had this too. But yeah, I was unaware of the carry that people were able to carry this game until the final day, and I was spent the final day. I didn't do anything. So that was kind of cool. Kind of cool to see there. Rabbit and Steel. Super Ghouls. Now this was surprising to me because I felt, first of all, very evenly divided, both in raw participant count, 24 to 23, and points taken, very close to a 50-50 split. I thought, right? See, exactly what you guys are saying. I thought Loop 2 was the biggest bait of Discord Wars. Now, I'm not very familiar with the game, but that was definitely the impression that it gave to me. That if you were doing Loop 2, you were looking for a hard time. Like, do Loop 1 and, experience the game and then hard bail for Loop 2. But nearly half as many people on both teams who bailed on Loop 1, or an equal amount of people who chose to bail on Loop 1 ended up going and finishing Loop 2. So, yeah, very close to 50-50 divided between people who bailed and people who chose to keep going. But yeah, I would have, if I had more time, I would have tried a Loop 1 clear, but I just ended up not doing any Ghouls and Goblins. 24 versus 23. Overall, like I get the impression that this was kind of like a Discord Wars contingent. I feel like this is for the hardcore Discord gamers. Because I'm just looking at those pie charts. Not a great amount of active participants chose to give this a go, or at least put it. Maybe they gave it a go, but ended up not completing a loop. This seems to have appealed more to the people who actually enjoy the grind, putting up some Discord Wars points and stuff. So that was interesting to see. Sunshine. Sunshine. Well. Well then. Seems like everybody was on the same page for Sunshine. Extremely, more so than any other event, extremely pancake sided. Like 2-1. Or excuse me, close to 75% pancake sided. Move ahead in the Persona playlist here. Yeah, I just want the snug music. I don't need the dungeon music. This was a situation where Pancakes also had a very good guide. The narrative on Pancakes was you can do 10 shines. There was a guide for a bunch of different. There was like a spreadsheet. There was a spreadsheet that recommended different shines on Pancakes, depending on how deep you wanted to go, different routes for different shine values. And then there was, in addition to that, there was a video guide for 10 shines on Team Pancakes, and a very high amount of people on Team Pancakes responding to that call to give 10 shines a go. So we saw 23 people do the 10 shine route. And I would assume that 9 that came after were people who maybe decided to give 10 shines a go and optimistically went for 20. But a very, very, very steep fall off after 20 shines. I mean, there were gamers. Pancakes did have gamers. People managed to put up shines all the way. Now, I don't know if this was a data gathering error on my side. I did try to verify this. It's possible I made a data gathering error, but I did not see anyone's profile allocated with points for beating Bowser. So, again, cannot 100% confirm this, but I believe that nobody took max points on this. And shout outs to whoever that one person was. Okay, so perhaps that's number 90 is Tober, who, or that one person sitting on Team Pancakes at 90. But yeah, this was a tough event. This is a tough event both to do and to sell people to do. But it was palpable to Pancakes to get 10 shines. I don't know what the organization was like on Waffles, but I mean, I didn't find doing this grind fun. So I completely understand the fact that the top end of this event was very, very under participated. And on Waffles, we saw 2 people get 40 shines and then nothing beyond that. Tober had 80 shines. All right, the mystery remains who had 90 then. Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough game to play damageless. Okay. Vermintide 2. This one's for Solo Man. Um, very even participation between both teams. Waffles had a very small edge. 37 pancakes took part and took points, and one more gamer on Waffles participated in Vermintide. Most people who participated in Vermintide did all the way and completed Act 4. That was the diff. That was the difference as far as Waffles beating Pancakes on points, because we saw you can see on the graph there for Team Pancakes, 9 participants got stuck in Act 2. Either didn't want to or didn't find the time to get a group together to make it through Act 3 and 4. Act 3 and 4. So nine people didn't get to Act 4 on Pancakes versus only 6 on Waffles. And Waffles also overall having more Act 4 finishers is what made the difference for Waffles getting a slight edge in Vermintide 2 points. Yeah, this game on the final form of this event was easy enough where you didn't need to understand anything about this game to make it all the way. And I believe next we have, okay, so you have RuneScape next. Now, we're going to look at RuneScape on 2 slides. First, we're just going to look at RuneScape quest points. This isn't the whole RuneScape point picture. This is just points from completing quests. KBD, Stronghold Security, we're going to look at that later. Okay, so 50 pancakes completed quests in RuneScape versus 62 on Waffles. Slightly short of a quarter of active participants on both teams. Pretty good numbers, though. Talked about Fire Cape, Paisha. That's pretty tough, Fire Cape. Waffles did manage the victory point wise overall. They were very well organized. Very well organized with great guides. We didn't. Everybody was sort of left to their own on Team Pancakes to get their points as far as figuring out how the game worked. That ended up being a 10 percentage point swing, so quite sizable. The overall team difference in points between Waffles and Pancakes. Pretty similar graphs, at least distribution wise, on both teams for how many quests, how many quest points were acquired by participants on both teams, but quite a bit more. 6 more participants ending up getting all 106 quest points, where the bulk, the bulk of the points were like you got, what was it, 10 points? 10 points from going from 100 to 106. Like RuneScape was very top heavy in terms of getting more points more quickly as you went deeper into the quests. One point would have been funny in hindsight. So that was RuneScape quest points. Now, the other RuneScape task you could have done for points in RuneScape: Barrows achieving level 30 in all skills, Stronghold of Security, and King Black Dragon. I don't know what Waffles told their RuneScape players, but huge turnout on Stronghold of Security, which is a very boring thing to do for 1 point. But yeah, it is free. Barrows was also pretty free because you could just walk in there and get the chest and get the points. But maybe the tech didn't get out on both teams. But a very strong, as part of the Conga. Okay. Yeah, if that was part of the Conga line, that makes sense. A very marked difference in Stronghold of Security completions across both teams. Very different. But otherwise, very similar, like 29 base 50s versus 31 on Waffles. 10 more people did end up getting the Barrows chest on Waffles. And close to nine more people on KBD. So yeah, like when you put all this together, it makes sense why Like Waffles was very well coordinated on RuneScape 2009, and when you look at the stats, you definitely see the full picture as why they took the majority of points, and not really that close either. Also, some jank regarding the Barros chest. You weren't supposed to be able to open it. Yeah, I think that was what the original intention was, but then there was no way the site just didn't end up checking that, so it ended up being free. What do we have next? Okay, randomizers. I believe we're very close to wrapping up now. Yeah, we're close to the end of the stats look here. So the top two graphs are the number of people on both teams who completed each randomizer, and then the bottom graphs are people who completed either exactly one, exactly two, or exactly three randomizers. Three being the maximum you could have done to take any points. Beyond that, you wouldn't get points credit. Pancakes got lied to about Barros. This is a situation where I think we see the guide diff here. Pancakes had very good Majora's Mask and Paper Mario guide, and I think that accounts for the very big difference in those two randomizers across teams. Now, SM64 was like I don't even think you need a guide for that. I don't think there was a guide. I saw someone in Pancakes post like a screenshot of a tracker that showed you where all like the warps were, or like when you jumped into a painting where you ended up, like the mapping of level entrances. But very similar participation in SM64 across teams. So I think the conclusion you can definitely make from this is that exactly the guide diff, because the interest in randomizers seemed rather similar, because very similar amount of people turned out for SM64, which you could just play blind very easily. Had the Paper Mario 64 light guide, okay. But just very, very, very different turnout for Majora's Mask and Paper Mario. However, Hollow Knight and Dark Souls saw much similar numbers across teams as far as completions. Yeah, the Pancakes Majora's Mask guide was very backseaty. It was great. For people who participated in randomizers, most of them just did one, which kind of surprises me. I think the like stereotype I have of randomizer players is they love randomizers, and like, if you play Archipelago, you end up knowing a bunch of randomizers anyway. So, kind of surprised me that most people who participated in doing a randomizer only did one. But still, there was a decent amount who went on and did multiple randomizers as well. Race mode doesn't really help. Waffles didn't have a strict guide. Every key item was noted. Ah, okay. Yeah, the Pancakes guide was very complete. The Majora's Mask was like to explain how the Majora's Mask one worked. The Majora's Mask would say, "Okay, go here, get this item. Now walk over there. You're going to see a chest." It was like literally someone sitting next to you and backseating. It was if you needed that, which a lot of me, for instance, and perhaps a lot of other Pancakes needed to be able to complete that game, it was perfect, because I wasn't going to beat it blind. I wasn't going to beat it with you telling me where the key items were. I needed you to tell me exactly how I had to walk and where I had to walk to. So that helped a lot. I think that contributed a very largely to the discrepancy between both teams in Majora's Mask. So now that's all the statistics we have that I managed to collect, or at least that I found interesting to present. Let's wrap up what we looked at today. So just a reminder of, I'm also going to post this later, Pi. I'll put like the PDF if you want to take a closer look or look back on stuff. There are some things we didn't look at today, though. One of them was leaderboards. I just couldn't think of any good way. I think leaderboards are most interesting statistics-wise as looking at them over time. I think that would be really interesting, where you see what the scores were, how they changed, how positions swapped over time. But I only collected data the last day and then when the event was over. So I don't have that data. And I think just looking at the snapshot of the final leaderboard doesn't really give anything interesting. But collecting data while Discord Wars is going on is very very intriguing. I'd like to maybe give that some consideration in the future. Also, didn't look at races. I think you'll get I think you'll get most of that data just by looking, like bringing up the old race time GG links and just seeing how many people entered, how many were waffles and whatnot. But most of that you just get on Racetime GG, so I didn't end up importing that. And then we also didn't look at points that were not assigned individually, like the bonus points for Racetime GG and PUBG, and the event night for Battle Night 2. What conclusions can we make from some of this data? Just some thoughts. Well, one, guides matter. We just finished talking about that. If your team had a really good guide for an activity, that helped, that encouraged people, that gave them the confidence to grind out that activity. Team meetings matter too. We saw in the Sunday morning data graph that the Pancakes meeting had a very, very strong influence on what people chose to do later that day and to bring people out. So I think that holding team meetings in Discord Wars has a appreciable effect on that team's point bottom line. Oops. Now, to me, there was a pretty good amount of participation in hard events and challenges. Like we saw a lot of people turning out for Hades and going deep into Hades. And I don't think that's an easy game. It also requires a lot of knowledge of Hades. Super Ghouls and Goblins. People were not dissuaded from going on Loop 2. And that also surprised me. So I don't think it's a bad thing to have hard events in Discord Wars. Like you definitely want your stuff that, you know, like your Archipelago, the stuff that you come out for is super approachable. But people aren't dissuaded from giving hard events, like going deep in hard events. However, not all hard events are created equally. We did see SMS have a very poor turnout and participation. At least, well, it had decent participation on Pancakes, but unlike Hades and unlike Super Ghouls and Ghosts, those gamers chose not to go deep in the challenge. They ended up bailing pretty quickly. Like most bailed after 10 shines, and a few went on to 20, and not many beyond that. So it's not enough to just add challenging games to Discord Wars. It also matters the design, both the choice of the game and the design of the challenges, how those games are incorporated. I believe we can also make that conclusion from the statistics we saw today. One thing that'll probably change for next year is every leaderboard will have a goal. Like, yeah, I think that's a great idea. I've heard multiple people suggest that as well at this point. So that seems to be an idea that a lot of people are receptive to, because I've heard people say like, oh, you know what I heard? What if someone told me like it'd be cool if like leaderboards work this way, and I think that's a good idea. I've heard a lot of people very receptive to that idea, so I think that'd be a cool change. Encourage people to do more leaderboard stuff. I guess this isn't so much a conclusion as like a closing question, but could participation stats be used to balance points for events? I don't really know. Perhaps there's a way to look at, I don't know, look at turnout and look at what people like to do and try. But that's kind of beyond. That's kind of beyond what I want to look into. But maybe that might interest someone else to look into. I believe that's it. Okay, special thanks. I'm going to shout out I Ate Your Pie for obviously creating the event, all the work he does in it, creating an awesome community. And then special shout out to that community goes to Mods, to Killy in particular, because he made the site and puts that all together. Mods who like did approvals, help come up with ideas, help coordinate stuff. But not just them. Not just them. I also want to shout out everybody who participated, because Discord Wars is not fun if only 10 people show up. If me, Yimo, JTB, Pie, Tapioca, Raikaru, whoever, Zerkun. If we're the only people who show up, it's not that fun. What's fun is you join Discord Wars and there's 300 other people on your team who you hardly ever talked before with, and you're squadding up and you're doing games and you're cheering people on. So yeah, it's not just the organizers. I also want to say a big shout out to just like to the people who participate, because that's what makes the fun. Probably the most successful MMO we had. Yeah, I was very surprised by how many people turned out to that. I figured some people would ask what the software was I used to make this presentation. It's called Beamer, so feel free to check that out. The graphs were all made with Matplotlib and Seaborn. And I would also like to thank HoloLive, because I watched their streams while I made this presentation, and that made it that helped that made it less boring to make a bunch of graphs. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. I will be highlighting this for anybody who missed it or wants it to like look back. Um, I think one of the sad things is we kind of lose perspective of Discord Wars after it happens. Like, can you guys really think about, like, how good is your guys' memory of like ninjas versus pirates, or cats versus dogs, or coffee versus tea? Like, I've got memories of those events, but I don't remember a lot of the like participation, or what was popular, or what we even did. So I'm hoping that maybe highlighting this highlighting this presentation we did today might serve as like a way to archive uh, these past 2 weeks, and maybe in Discord Wars 8 and 9 we'll be able to look back on this and we'll be able to draw similarities, differences, notice trends, notice what worked, come up with new ideas, be able to be like, oh, that worked well in this event, but it didn't work as well in this one, or vice versa. So I'm a big part of my motivation as well to do this was so that we have some kind of uh, like record of participation and of the events that I feel like we might not really have as well of previous ones. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I will also post all these slides are in a PDF file. I will export these as a PDF file, and if you guys want to take a closer look later, I'll post that somewhere. So